Hey guys, another video for our how to do stuff in Japan playlist. But first, a weather report. Some of you who watch our videos regularly will be aware that we had the rainy season that rained pretty much every day, almost every day, almost all day, every day, for about 5 weeks or so. And during that time we had some fairly hot temperatures, 35, 36. 37 and humidity of 80%, 83%, so it was pretty intense, pretty hot and wet, hot and humid. And then the rain stopped, and then it's the same pattern every year. Everyone here acts surprised when these things happen, when the weather happens, but it's the same thing every year. And then the rain stops, and then there's been no rain for like 2 or 3 weeks. So the result is now 37, 38 degrees. We had one day of 40. Central Japan had 41.5 recently, which is some sort of record. Pretty warm, and because it's been really dry, we've got about 30% humidity, which is actually more bearable for the body. The body can survive better, but yeah, it's hot. It is hot, and because of where that camera is, I can't have the fans blowing on me because it's too noisy for you guys. So just got a little bit of air coming in at the feet, not enough. So excuse me for sweating while we talk. So some of you watch the videos regularly would also have seen a video a while ago about that it was taken at a festival, a public festival in a public place, where we were actually filming. There was some girls, like a fake AKB48 type group. Actually might have been SKE48, can't remember who it was now, but anyway, a group of, you know the type, group of young girls in short skirts, and a big group of guys lining up to get their autographs. And we're actually filming the guys that were lining up to get the autographs. We weren't really interested in the girls because we've seen that sort of thing before. Our story was going to be about the guys who line up to get their autographs and take their photos and pay for the privilege. That was our story. And then you might remember there was a guy in that group who came over and tried to explain that we couldn't take video. And while I took the video, I had a discussion with him about, yes, I can. And he said, no, the promoter of the girls said that it was a rule that you couldn't take a photo of the girls without paying money first, right? Now, we weren't actually taking video of the girls, we're taking video of the guys. Those who saw the video would know that. But that wasn't really the point. It was sort of interesting that he was trying to tell us that in a public place, we couldn't take a video. Which, you know, was just straight out wrong. But it was interesting that Japanese style of explaining it, right? So telling me the ruru about it, right? The rule. Now, keep in mind too, in Japanese there are words that mean rule, but for some reason they've brought the Japanglish in and they use ruru, which is pretty funny because R in Japanese is not really R, and L in Japanese doesn't really exist. So ruru. The rule is, so some of you might remember that video. There was another video where there was a fire, and we actually filmed the fire. Lots of people filmed the fire, and then we went back the next day to film the burnt out shop, and there was a policeman sitting in a police car, and we filmed the burnt out shop, and then he got out and was explaining that we shouldn't take video of the burnt shop because it's bad mana, right? And again, there are lots of Japanese words that mean manner or etiquette or similar words, but they've taken on the Japanglish mana, right, for meaning etiquette or manners, appropriate manners, or sometimes they use it for that sort of thing. You get the idea anyway. And some of you might have seen that video, and he explained, and I said to him, I'm standing on a public street filming a building. Yesterday lots of people filmed the same building. Why is it that I can't film the building? And he said it's mana. And so for some of us, I said to him, is it against the law? And he said, no, it isn't, it's mana, right? And for some of us, we come from cultures where it's pretty black and white. Either it's okay to do something, it's legal to do something, or it's not legal to do something. It's pretty much usually the case, isn't it? There are some exceptions, if we're visiting someone's house or on private property, they can have different rules, can't they? If we go to a bar and it's private property, they can tell us that we're not allowed in unless we have appropriate shoes, or unless we're wearing a tie, or, you know, they can make rules like that, can't they? If we're on private property, they can make whatever rule they want, can't they? They can insist we all wear pink t-shirts if they want to. And again, that's legal, isn't it? It's because it's private property, it's owned by a person or a corporation, and they can dictate what the rules are on their property, or they can ask people to leave. And that's all within the law, isn't it? And that's sort of what a lot of us are used to, isn't it? That things are legal or they're not legal. And we're allowed to do something by law or not allowed to do something by law. And it sort of makes it black and white, doesn't it? So in our societies, it sort of gives you your clear guidelines, what's okay and what's not. Is this legal? Yeah, well, I can do it, you know? And if it's not legal, well, if I do it, I'm going to get in trouble. But it's fairly clear, it's in black and white. However, in Japan, we do have this ruru and mana thing. And for most Japanese people, if someone tells them that there's a ruru, they won't question it. And we get it all the time with our friends and family, where they say, oh, we can't do that. And why not? Oh, it's a ruru. What do you mean it's a ruru? Who told you that? Oh, that guy did. He told us that, ruru. Or some old guy will come over and say, oh, it's a ruru. You can't do that. And the local Old Guys Association will post signs on the local park, right? The local parks that are owned by the city, and the local Old Men's Association will make up a sign saying, mana, no playing with balls in this park. Seriously, we see that one quite a lot, because the local old guys don't like the sound of balls being smacked around in the park or something, which is amazing, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing, you know. And there'd be no law that would be saying that kids couldn't go and kick a ball around in that park. But the old guys post a sign that says, mana, the mana in this park is that, you know, no ball play. And that'll be the end of it then, because the parents will say, oh no, there's a sign that says no ball play in the park. And they don't question it, you know, whereas a lot of us come from societies where we'd go, wait a minute, you know. We'd be more interested in the logic and in the law, wouldn't we? That's our normal reaction, isn't it? And this stuff comes up, there would not be a week that went by where something didn't come up, you know. And sometimes you just see it, you see a sign on the thing in the park saying no ball play, you know, and sometimes it affects you and that might bother you a bit, and sometimes it doesn't, and then it's just a mildly interesting thing. But you will experience it, you know. So, you know, all the time, you know, once a week at least you come across something where there's a mana or a rule that's illogical and not legal, just a mana or a rule, you know. And the first couple of 100 times, you know, it's sort of, it's not so bad. But after all, it can wear you down. These are the sort of things that people who live in Japan long term, that can drive them crazy. And often there's a good reason for it, but sometimes there's not. And what triggered this video off was today I was out and had a big bunch of newsletters from the school that they wanted put in all the letterboxes in the local area, right? And so I was out sticking these things, 38 degrees it is today, really hot, sticking these things in letterboxes going down the street. And there's an apartment building. And I got to the apartment building and they have on an external wall, they have all the letterboxes lined in rows, you know. And as I got to it, I looked and I saw there's a sign on the wall that says the name of the management agency, the real estate company that manages the building. So it has their name on a sign on the building. And then there was a little car parked there with a dude sitting in it, and it had a sticker on the door and it was the name of the rental agency. Okay, so there's the property manager, there's the real estate property manager, you know, sitting in his car, or salesman probably, or something, and he's sitting in his car. And I started to put these things in letterboxes, and he jumped out and he came over, oh, sumasen, and you can almost tell when someone's going to tell you a mana or a rule. They just sort of have a different demeanor about them, you know. Sumasen, you know. Yes, and I just kept doing it. I just kept putting them in, and there was a couple of them on there that said no junk mail. They have this thing, Japanese, but it means no junk mail. And a couple of them had those stickers on, so I didn't put them in there. It wasn't really junk mail. It was from the school, but okay, don't want to upset anybody. So I put them all in the letterboxes, and he's come up and said, "Sumasen," yes, and oh, what's that? And so, right, you feel this thing sometimes when things like that. It's like, come on, 38-degree heat. I'm doing this thing for the school, and Mr. White shirt, blue pants, and brown shoes. I've shown you that fashion before on the fashion playlist. The pointy shoes and it's the salaryman uniform. Young guy. And I assume I said, what's that? And so, look, rather than get in any discussion, I just handed it to him. There you go. And I kept putting in the letterboxes. It's okay, he said, and handed it back. And with a real sort of, you can go ahead and do that. And right, okay, so legally, of course, we're standing just inside the boundary of this apartment building, but it's an external wall with the letterboxes, which is public access, right? For the postman and for other people to put things in the post boxes, for the people who control those post boxes, who hold the keys, who are the people that live in the apartments. Nothing to do with the managing agent, right? And so while I'm putting him in there, I said to him, why is that? Oh, that's okay. You can't put anything in there from house companies, right? Real estate companies. Really? Yeah, it's a rule. It's a rule. Hauntony? I said hauntony? Rule. It's a rule. It's a rule. You're not allowed to put anything in the letterbox from house companies. So obviously what they've decided, this real estate company, is they don't want competition. They don't want people putting stuff in the letterboxes for houses that are for sale, because they might lose their tenants, right? So right? So I said to him, really? I said, there's no sign here saying that. And I like, same with the policeman and same with the dude in the park with the AKB-48 wannabes. There's no benefit at all, and we've said this on the How to Do Stuff in Japan playlist hundreds of times. There's no point in at all debating any of these things, because you're not going to change anybody's mind. He's not going to go home at the end of the day and think, geez, that foreigner had a really good point. Right? It's not going to change a thing. The best response in this situation is just to go, I see, thank you very much, and to thank them. And that's the Japanese response. When a Japanese person gets told something is the rule or something is the manner, they'll thank the person who told them. Thank you very much, because they want to know. And it's hard sometimes because the way it gets told to us feels a little bit like, don't you do that, do this, don't you do that. And if there's no legal basis for who's telling you, it could be anybody telling you, or what they're telling you, sometimes it can get you back up a little bit if you're from a different culture. But the best response is just to go, I see, thank you very much, and leave it at that. And that would have been the best response when he said that, is just, okay, thank you very much, and left it at that. But just because I wanted something to do while I'm putting these things in letterboxes, and because it was 38 degrees, and because his demeanour was sort of irritating, I said to him, there's nothing wrong with putting them in there either. They can put them in there too. Sorry, more deja vu. Huh? And I said to him, look, this place is, these letterboxes belong to the tenants. This is for people to put things in the letterboxes for the tenants. It's got nothing to do with the managing agent. This one's got a sticker, this one's got a sticker, so nobody should put anything in there because the tenants have asked. And again, that's just mana. That's not law either. That's the tenants putting a sticker saying no junk mail, please. And just out of common decency, you're not going to do it, are you? Because they don't want you to. That's fair enough. That's their letterbox. But old mate here is basically what they're trying to do is just protect their business. They don't want to lose their tenants. They've got no legal right. Even some people would say no moral right to stop you doing that, to stop the house company putting their stuff in there, because that's between the house company and those people. It's got nothing to do with it. The managing agent can't stand there and censor what mail goes in the letterboxes, right? So legally and possibly morally, you could argue that, it's none of their business, right? And it's a rule, and because Japanese people lose their minds. If someone tells you it's a rule or it's mana, then you say, no, it's not, right? They lose their minds. They go, because no one says that here. Everyone goes, rule, okay, thank you very much. So nobody says, no, it isn't, right? So he lost his mind a bit, and got really flustered, and kept pushing it. And I said to him, you got a business card? No, I don't have a business card. Really? You don't have a business card on you? No. You don't have a business card in your car? No. And it was just bluff. It was just playing games with him, And he just sort of pulled his head right back in again and sort of, oh, thank you very much. He said, thank you very much, and got back in his car. And that was the end of him. But it triggered the video because that wasn't the right response. You know, you don't want to make waves. You know, it's a local area. It's the local area, likely to encounter that guy again somewhere, you know, at the school or somewhere. And it's just not worth it. It doesn't change anything, you know. Sometimes with those how-to videos that we've made where we've said, look, don't fight, you know. No matter what someone says to you here, don't fight, don't argue, just go, oh, okay, thank you very much. And there's always people, or often people, who respond to that by going, you've got to say something, nothing's going to change. You know, when it's been an emotional topic like discrimination or harassment or one of those sort of topics, you know, and people get really emotional and say, nothing's going to change if you don't do something about it. Well, nothing's going to change anyway. But we've already made videos about, you know, that often Japanese people are mildly curious about what foreigners think about things, but they're not interested in changing things because of what foreigners say. We've never seen any example where anything in Japan has changed because of what foreigners have said and done. If any of you guys can think of one example, you know, it just doesn't happen in Japanese society that the foreigner says something and everyone goes, oh, good point. You know, they just don't do that. And you watch TV here and you'll see that. They'll often ask foreigners what they think about things. Everyone goes, oh, we've shown you examples of that on television too. Where the foreigner says what they think and people go, oh, and nothing changes. And neither should it. I mean, it's Japan. You know, most countries, if a foreigner went, you know, if we went to most other people's countries and told them what they should do, you know, a lot of them would just tell you to F off, wouldn't they? Bugger off, go back to where you came from, you know. You don't like it here, go home. And that'd be fair enough, wouldn't it? It'd be like someone coming into your house and telling you that they didn't like, you know, what you did in your house. You'd tell them to leave, wouldn't you? So, similar thing. So it's sort of a waste of time. It's just those of you who've lived here long term, and I know some guys, I know an English guy who reacts much more than I do. Every time, probably, would be fair to say, he reacts every time someone says something to him, you know. quite aggressively too, tells them to go away. But you know, even if you do your best here not to do that and just, oh, thank you very much, and most of the time, maybe 100 times, those 3 examples I've given you where I've actually, you know, discussed it with the people, and those of you who saw the video about the guy in the park, I videoed that conversation. There was no aggression, you know. I don't show them any aggression or confrontation or anything, just ask questions. Well, ask questions that back them up against a wall, basically, because they can't sort of answer it except to keep repeating that it's a rule or a mana, and they don't really have anywhere else to go with it, you know. But for those 3 examples I've given you, there's probably been 1,000 times where people have told me rule or mana, and I've just gone, hi, wakarimasu, arigato gozaimasu. Thank you very much for telling me the rule and the manner, you know. And it really is the best way. It really is the best way, because when you do respond to it and say to them, no, that's not right, or I don't want to do that, or I don't think that's right, or that's not a law, or if you do respond to it like that, it's a waste of time, really. It just makes waves. It just makes bad vibes. And you can't do it. Those 3 examples I gave you, I was on my own. There were no family members with me, and there were no friends with me. Each of those 3 times I did it, I was on my own. And that's a really important point too. If you're with a Japanese friend or a Japanese family member, you should never do this because it embarrasses them no end. It really would. There's no way you should do it if you're, you know. There was only the times I did it, I was on my own. At the festival, I was waiting for my family to join me. They'd gone off to do something else, and I was waiting for them to join me. Had a bit of free time on my hands, right? So that's why I did it. And the thing with the policeman, I was on my own too. And then with old mate here at the letterbox, I was on my own. And I wouldn't have considered doing it if there was a friend or family member with me, because they would have died of embarrassment. They really would. So that's the sort of thing that can really burn relationships for you in Japan, because, you know, if you respond negatively in a situation like that, when you've got a Japanese friend or family member with you, it'll embarrass them. And if they're a friend, that it might embarrass them enough they don't want to hang out with you anymore, because it just creates such a bad vibe for them and freaks them out so much. You know, the old man was saying the mana, and, you know, the foreigner was arguing with him. They don't want to be involved in that. So Anyway, there it was. Like we always say, these videos, anything and everything about Japan, we just tell you what we see. We're just telling you what we see and what we hear, what we experience. And hopefully, if we do that, every time we do one of these videos, there'll be one person who says, oh, okay, I won't make a dick of myself. Now I've learned from your mistakes, or I've learned from what you do. Now and again, we do get a bit of feedback like that, and it makes it all worthwhile. You know, someone will say, oh, that thing you said there saved me from some hassle. It's like, right, excellent. Well, that made that video worth making. So if there's one person, and just for entertainment value, those who are interested in Japanese culture, you know, will find things like this interesting. That's how Japan stays so orderly and neat. Quite often that man-na rule thing is actually something that's worthwhile, where it's sort of a sensible thing, where you go, no, that makes sense. You know, sometimes that park has a sign that says no fireworks, and that makes sense. So places surrounded by houses, old houses that burn really easily, and there's a sign that the old guys put up that said the mana is no fireworks in this park. Well, that makes a lot of sense, and quite often it does. Quite often the mana or the rule makes a lot of sense and is a good thing. So it's not always bad, you know. Anyway, there it was, that's enough. More videos coming soon.